Most people imagine the world of the New Testament through the lens of the church, the synagogue, the temple. But strip away the spiritual architecture, and what you find is a world of markets, harbors, fishing boats, olive groves, and bread ovens. Greek culture had saturated the ancient Near East for 3 centuries by the time Jesus walked the roads of Galilee. Greek was the language of the New Testament itself. The food culture of that world was a living synthesis of Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Syrian, and Levantine culinary traditions, sharing the same sea, the same spice routes, and many of the same tables.
The foods that sustained ordinary people in first-century Judea and Galilee were the foods of the Mediterranean working world. Dense, anti-inflammatory, fermented, pressed, dried, and prepared with the kind of daily attention that comes from having no alternative to real food. What modern nutritional science keeps discovering, one isolated compound at a time, is that those foods carried some of the most sophisticated biological chemistry ever studied in the context of longevity, cognitive health, and chronic inflammation management.
Today, we are walking through 20 of those foods, drawn from the Greek and Levantine culinary tradition that shaped daily life in the world the New Testament describes. Pay close attention to number 1. It sits at the intersection of the most ancient medicinal traditions and the most current pharmaceutical research, and almost nobody discusses it in the context of daily nutrition. And when we reach number 8, stay with me, because the food we discuss there appears in one of the most intimate post-resurrection moments in the Gospels, and its nutritional profile turns out to be almost perfectly calibrated for what an exhausted, depleted human body needs to restore itself. This content is for educational and historical purposes only. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns.
Number 20. Lupini beans. Lupins were among the most widely consumed legumes in the ancient Mediterranean world. Greek and Roman agricultural writers documented them extensively. They were a staple food of Greek farmers, sailors, and laborers, eaten salted from street vendors the way we eat peanuts today. Lupini beans contain the highest protein concentration of any commonly consumed legume, approximately 36 to 40% protein by dry weight, along with fiber and alkaloids with documented hypoglycemic and blood pressure reducing properties. Clinical trials have shown regular consumption significantly reduces blood glucose, systolic blood pressure, and LDL cholesterol, with effect sizes researchers describe as clinically meaningful. Soak lupini beans for several days, changing the water daily to reduce the naturally occurring bitter alkaloids. Once properly prepared, eat a handful daily as a protein-dense snack, or add to salads and grain bowls. Number 19. Octopus. The Sea of Galilee and the Mediterranean were working waters in the 1st century. Octopus was a common catch across the Mediterranean basin, documented in Greek and Roman culinary texts, dried and preserved for trade. Octopus contains taurine, an amino acid with documented cardioprotective properties found in high concentrations in cephalopods. It contains vitamin B12 at levels among the highest of any commonly consumed seafood, selenium with documented antioxidant and thyroid-supporting properties, and omega-3 fatty acids alongside a complete, exceptionally lean amino acid profile. Traditional Mediterranean preparation involves braising slowly in its own liquid with olive oil, wine vinegar, and herbs. The fishermen of the ancient Mediterranean were building cardiovascular protection into their weekly diet without a single clinical trial to guide them.
Number 18. Dried fava beans. Fava beans are one of the oldest cultivated crops on Earth, with archaeological evidence of consumption stretching back 10,000 years in the Near East. Traditional Egyptian cuisine has maintained foul madams, slow-cooked fava beans, as a daily breakfast preparation for thousands of years, with virtually no interruption.
Fava beans contain L-dopa, a direct precursor to the neurotransmitter dopamine, making them the only common food with documented potential relevance to dopaminergic function. They contain significant folate, iron, zinc, and manganese, alongside fiber that supports gut health. Soak dried fava beans for 24 hours, discard the soaking water, and slow cook until completely tender. Dress with olive oil, lemon juice, cumin, and crushed raw garlic. One of the oldest continuously prepared dishes in human history.
Number 17. Pistachios. Genesis 43:11 records Jacob sending pistachios as a currency-grade gift to the ruler of Egypt, evidence that pistachios were considered a prestige food. Babylonian records place them in the Hanging Gardens. Persian royalty held pistachio groves as exclusive royal property. Greek traders called them happy nuts and carried them as personal energy reserves. The nutritional rationale for that prestige is now understood precisely. Pistachios contain the highest concentration of lutein and zeaxanthin of any commonly consumed nut, the two carotenoids that protect the macula of the human eye from age-related degeneration. They contain a complete amino acid profile unusual among nuts, making them a powerful complementary protein source. Multiple clinical studies have demonstrated that regular pistachio consumption significantly increases populations of beneficial bifidobacterium strains in the colon, with the structural mechanism traced to fat within pistachios that is partially encased in cell walls human digestive enzymes cannot fully break down. A meaningful portion of the fat in pistachios feeds colonic bacteria rather than being absorbed. Raw or very lightly roasted pistachios, a small handful daily.
Number 16. Sea urchin. In the ancient Mediterranean world, roe from sea creatures was not a luxury. Greek fishermen ate it fresh from the shell. Sea urchin roe contains among the highest concentrations of EPA omega-3 fatty acids of any marine food, alongside exceptional density of zinc, magnesium, and beta-carotene. It contains anandamide, the endocannabinoid compound associated with mood regulation and neural homeostasis, at concentrations higher than virtually any other food source. Traditional Greek and Italian coastal communities have consumed it raw with bread and lemon as a complete meal for centuries. Fresh, raw, with flatbread and lemon.
Number 15. Dried apricots. Apricots have been cultivated in the ancient Near East for over 4,000 years. Sun-dried apricots were a staple preserved food across the Greek and Levantine world, carried on journeys and traded across spice routes. Traditional Turkish and Middle Eastern medicine documented them for eye health, iron deficiency, and digestive regularity. Dried apricots contain beta-carotene at concentrations among the highest of any dried fruit, alongside iron better absorbed when paired with the fruit's own vitamin C content. They provide potassium, supporting cardiovascular health, and insoluble fiber promoting digestive motility. Unsulfured dried apricots, which are dark brown rather than artificially bright orange, retain significantly more polyphenol content. A small handful daily alongside nuts or in grain porridge.
Number 14. Calamari and squid. Mediterranean coastal communities consumed squid and calamari as everyday protein, dried, salted, or grilled fresh from the catch. Greek culinary culture documented squid preparations for centuries before the New Testament was written. Squid contains taurine alongside copper, zinc, vitamin B12, and selenium in concentrations that support neurological function, immune response, and antioxidant defense. The copper content of squid is among the highest of any commonly consumed food, and copper deficiency, now understood to be more widespread than previously recognized, is associated with anemia, neurological decline, and impaired immune function. Clean, briefly marinate in lemon and olive oil, and grill over high heat. The fishermen of Galilee were building micronutrient density into their diets that modern processed food cannot replicate. Number 14. calamari, and squid. Mediterranean coastal communities consumed squid and calamari as everyday protein, dried, salted, or grilled fresh from the catch. Greek culinary culture documented squid preparations for centuries before the New Testament was written. Squid contains taurine alongside copper, zinc, vitamin B12, and selenium in concentrations that support neurological function, immune response, and antioxidant defense. The copper content of squid is among the highest of any commonly consumed food, and copper deficiency, now understood to be more widespread than previously recognized, is associated with anemia, neurological decline, and impaired immune function. Clean, briefly marinate in lemon and olive oil and grill over high heat. The fishermen of Galilee were building micronutrient density into their diets that modern processed food cannot replicate.
Number 12. Pine nuts. Pine nuts appear in Greek and Roman culinary texts as a common ingredient in both sweet and savory preparations. They are referenced in ancient medical papyri. Traditional Greek and Syrian cuisine has used them continuously in stuffed preparations, grain dishes, and pastries for as long as those culinary traditions have been documented. Pine nuts from the Mediterranean stone pine contain pinolenic acid, a fatty acid found in almost no other food source, which has been studied for its effects on appetite regulation through ghrelin and cholecystokinin pathways. Research has shown that pinolenic acid preparations reduce appetite and caloric intake in study populations through a mechanism researchers describe as distinct from other known satiety compounds. Pine nuts also contain manganese at levels among the highest of any nut, zinc, vitamin E, and monounsaturated fats that support cardiovascular health. Lightly toast a small handful in a dry pan until fragrant and golden. Add to grain dishes, legume preparations, or eat with dried fruit, as the ancient world did.
Number 11. Cured olives. The olive itself, whole and cured, was the daily food of ordinary people in a way that pressed oil was not. Cured olives were the ration of soldiers, traders, and fishermen across the ancient Mediterranean. Whole cured olives contain the same oleocanthal and hydroxytyrosol present in olive oil, alongside the fiber of the whole fruit and the mineral content of the brine. The traditional brine-cured olive, not the heat-processed, commercially canned variety, retains live cultures from natural lactofermentation. Traditional Greek Kalamata olives, Moroccan oil-cured olives, and Syrian green olives, each prepared without artificial preservatives. A handful daily with bread, legumes, or simply as they are. Number 10. Goat's milk cheese. Before pasteurization and refrigeration, cheese was one of the most important preserved food technologies in the ancient world. Greek culinary culture built an entire taxonomy of cheese types. Goat's milk has smaller fat globules than cow's milk and a fundamentally different protein structure. Its primary protein is A2 casein, which research suggests is better tolerated by the human digestive system than the A1 casein found in most commercial dairy. The fat in goat's milk is richer in medium-chain fatty acids, particularly caprylic acid, with documented antimicrobial and antifungal properties. Traditional fresh goat's cheese contains live cultures when made without heat treatment, providing probiotic activity alongside its protein and calcium content. Simple fresh goat's cheese dressed with olive oil, herbs, and sea salt. The Greek table was never without it.
Number 9. Mulberries. Mulberry trees grew abundantly across the ancient Near East and Mediterranean. The sycamine tree, referenced in Luke 17 verse 6, which Jesus uses as the subject of a teaching about faith, is most likely a black mulberry tree. Mulberry cultivation in the Levant predates written records. Greek and Roman physicians documented mulberries for digestive and liver conditions. Traditional Arabic medicine prescribed them for anemia, liver health, and inflammatory conditions. Black mulberries contain anthocyanins,
particularly cyanidin-3 glucoside, at concentrations that rival blueberries in antioxidant measurements. They contain resveratrol alongside significant vitamin C and iron that enhances the absorption of the non-heme iron. Research has shown mulberry preparations significantly reduce fasting blood glucose and postprandial blood sugar spikes in diabetic patients, with researchers noting the presence of 1-deoxynitrosamine, a compound that inhibits intestinal alpha-glucosidase and slows carbohydrate absorption. Fresh mulberries eaten at peak ripeness or dried and added to grain preparations through the seasons when fresh fruit is unavailable.
Number 8. Broiled fish with salt. This is the most directly documented meal in all of post-resurrection scripture. In Luke 24:42, Jesus appears to his disciples and is offered a piece of broiled fish, which he eats in their presence. In John 21:9, he prepares breakfast for his disciples on the shore after a night of fishing. Charcoal, fish laid on it, and bread. The simplest possible preparation. Fish from the Sea of Galilee and Mediterranean waters, grilled directly over heat with nothing more than salt, represents one of the most nutritionally complete single food preparations available. The complete amino acid profile, the EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids, the vitamin D, the B12, selenium and iodine essential for thyroid and neurological function, the zinc for immune response, and the potassium for cardiovascular regulation. All of it in a single piece of fish, simply salted and broiled. The disciples had been awake all night doing hard physical labor on the water. Their cortisol was elevated, their muscles depleted, their gut fasting. The first meal prepared for them delivered exactly the anti-inflammatory omega-3s and complete protein their bodies required. He knew exactly what exhausted bodies needed. He served it at sunrise.
Number 7. Barley flatbread with herbs. The barley loaves used in the feeding of the 5,000 were not artisan bread. They were the dense, dark, chewy flatbreads of ordinary people, baked on hot stones, carried in pouches, eaten with whatever herbs or oil was available. Traditional Greek barley flatbread preparation involves soaking cracked barley overnight, mixing with water and salt, and cooking directly on a heated flat stone or iron surface. The resulting bread is dense, slightly sour from the soaking, and nutritionally complete in a way refined wheat bread is not. Barley contains the highest beta-glucan concentration of any grain on Earth. Beta-glucan forms a viscous gel in the gut that slows glucose absorption, binds LDL cholesterol, and feeds beneficial bacteria. The soaking process activates phytase, dismantling the phytic acid that blocks mineral absorption. The herbs pressed into or eaten alongside the flatbread, whether wild thyme, oregano, or marjoram, add additional polyphenol antimicrobial compounds. This is not a recipe for a specialty loaf. It is the daily bread of the ancient working world.
Number 6. Loquat. The loquat, Areobatria japonica, and its related species were widely distributed across the ancient Mediterranean and Near East. Traditional Greek and Arabic medicine documented loquat leaf preparations for respiratory conditions and loquat fruit for digestive complaints. Chinese traditional medicine documented the same applications independently. Loquat fruit contains chlorogenic acid, a polyphenol with documented effects on blood glucose management and liver health, alongside significant beta-carotene, vitamin C, and potassium. Loquat leaves contain ursolic acid with documented anti-inflammatory and anti-carcinogenic properties in laboratory research. The fruit also contains pectin fiber with prebiotic properties and tannins with documented astringent and antimicrobial effects on the digestive tract. Fresh loquat, eaten in season with the skin intact, delivers the full chlorogenic acid and polyphenol fraction. Dried loquat, concentrated into a preparation with raw honey and lemon for use as a respiratory tonic in the colder months.
Number 5. Quince. The golden apple of Greek mythology,
the fruit associated with Aphrodite, the fruit carved into the architectural ornamentation of the ancient world, is almost certainly the quince rather than the apple as we know it today. Quinces appear across ancient Greek botanical and medical records. They were cultivated throughout the Levant and appear in ancient Assyrian and Egyptian records. Traditional Greek and Arabic medicine documented quince specifically for digestive conditions, nausea, and inflammatory gut conditions. Quince contains pectin at concentrations among the highest of any commonly available fruit, giving it documented prebiotic and gut protective properties. It contains catechins, procyanidins, and chlorogenic acid, alongside vitamin C and potassium. Research has shown quince preparations significantly reduce nausea, improve digestive transit, and reduce intestinal inflammation in clinical studies. The astringency of raw quince is significant, requiring cooking or preservation for palatability. Slow-cook quince with honey and a small amount of water until soft and fragrant. The resulting preparation keeps for weeks in glass and provides a daily dose of prebiotic fiber and polyphenols.
Number 4. Carob. The carob pod appears in the parable of the prodigal son in Luke 15:16, where the son, in his desolation, feeds on the pods the pigs eat. Carob pods were so uniformly consistent in weight that they gave us the word carat, the unit still used to measure gold and gemstones. Greek and Roman physicians documented carob for digestive conditions and respiratory illness. Carob contains tannins with documented antimicrobial and antidiarrheal properties, alongside pynetol, a cyclitol compound with studied insulin sensitizing effects. Research has shown pynetol reduces blood glucose levels and improves insulin sensitivity in diabetic models. The pod fiber feeds beneficial gut bacteria with a prebiotic profile researchers describe as distinct from other common fiber sources. Carob is naturally sweet, with no caffeine and no theobromine. Use carob powder in warm water or stir it into nut butter as a daily preparation.
Number 3. Wild greens. Horta. The practice of gathering and eating wild greens, known in Greek culinary tradition as horta, is among the oldest and most continuous food practices in the Mediterranean world. Greek communities, from the mountains of Crete to the hills of the Peloponnese, have gathered chicory, wild mustard, amaranth, wood sorrel, and dozens of other wild species for daily consumption since before recorded history. This is not nostalgia, it is the survival of one of the most nutritionally significant dietary habits ever studied. Wild greens contain significantly higher concentrations of polyphenols, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals than any cultivated vegetable equivalent. Wild chicory contains inulin prebiotic fiber that supports gut health with daily consumption. Wild mustard greens contain glucosinolates with documented detoxification pathway support. The Blue Zones research found that communities in Ikaria, Greece, with exceptional longevity rates, consumed foraged wild greens daily throughout their lives. Lightly blanch mixed wild greens, dress generously with extra virgin olive oil and lemon, and eat with bread and olives. This is the daily meal of the world's longest-lived Greek communities, unchanged for thousands of years.
Number 2. Vinegar and brine. The ancient Mediterranean world consumed vinegar as food, medicine, and a daily table presence in ways the modern world has entirely forgotten. In Ruth 2:14, Boaz invites Ruth to dip her bread in the vinegar. Roman soldiers carried posca, diluted wine vinegar, as their daily beverage. Greek physicians documented vinegar for digestive conditions and fever management. The acetic acid in traditionally made wine vinegar has been shown in multiple clinical trials to slow gastric emptying, inhibit alpha amylase and alpha glucosidase activity, and reduce post-meal blood glucose spikes by 15 to 30%. It stimulates gastric acid production in people with hypochlorhydria, a condition driving chronic bloating and mineral malabsorption in a significant percentage of older adults. The brine from traditionally fermented olives and capers contains lactic acid bacteria,
alongside the minerals of the brining salt. A tablespoon of traditionally made wine vinegar in water before meals, the ancient table always had something acidic on it. Modern nutrition is beginning to understand exactly why.
Number 1. Oregano. Oregano grows wild across the hills and limestone outcroppings of the entire biblical landscape. Greek physician Hippocrates used it as a disinfectant and for respiratory and digestive conditions. Dioscorides documented it extensively. Traditional Arabic medicine prescribed it. The ancient world called it joy of the mountains and embedded it in the cuisine and medicine of the entire Mediterranean with a thoroughness that reflects both its extraordinary flavor and its extraordinary utility. Oregano contains carvacrol and thymol as primary active volatile compounds, alongside rosmarinic acid, apigenin, and luteolin. Carvacrol has demonstrated in laboratory research some of the most potent natural antimicrobial activity ever measured in a culinary herb, with documented activity against E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, Staphylococcus aureus, and Candida albicans, with minimum inhibitory concentrations that researchers describe as clinically significant. Carvacrol disrupts bacterial cell membrane integrity and inhibits quorum sensing, the mechanism bacteria use to coordinate and amplify infection. Research on oregano preparations has shown meaningful reductions in small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, reduction in intestinal parasitic burden, and systemic anti-inflammatory effects. High-quality dried oregano, rubbed between the palms before adding to food, releases the volatile oil fraction carrying the active compounds. Fresh oregano steeped in olive oil for 4 to 6 weeks produces a preparation concentrating both the oil's polyphenol content and the herb's carvacrol. The wild plant growing on every hillside in the biblical landscape was the medicine cabinet of the daily kitchen.
What the foods on this list share is not geography or religion. They share a relationship with the human body that developed over thousands of years of daily use in a specific climate and ecological context by people who had no alternative to paying close attention to what those foods did. The Mediterranean working world of the first century was eating for survival, for the strength to work from dawn to dusk, for the resilience to stay healthy through hard winters and lean seasons. And the specific foods it chose appear in the oldest texts and the freshest peer-reviewed journals simultaneously. That convergence is not coincidence. It is the oldest clinical trial ever conducted. Share this with someone in your life who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me which of these 20 surprised you most. See you in the next one.